Welcome, Saners. Got my cuppa, hope you do too. We're going to be talking about the season so far for St Kilda. Now, it's important doing a video like this that I look beyond the last month, because if you look at just the last month, and I think a lot of Saners can get corralled into doing that, we'll be looking at this in quite a negative light. But you're looking at it as a whole, right? We've played 11 games. We're 7-4. We're 5th on the ladder. And we have the best defense in the competition. Not bad. Not bad for a team that had zero expectation from the outside world, the outside AFL world, going into this season. Even after the changes that we had made, moving from Ratton to Ross, did we really predict to be at this point, this early in the changeover, if you would call it that? I certainly wasn't. I certainly had no expectation to be in the top 5 at the bye round. I just wanted to see some good footy. I wanted to see some individual improvement, some collective improvement. And overall, I just wanted to feel like St Kilda was St Kilda again. You look at a player like Hunter Clark, again, 4 to 6 weeks he's out. Terrible news. He was showing some serious improvement. Look at Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira. Look at Mitch Owens. Look at these sort of guys. Cal Wilkie, he's already a good defender. He's gone to All-Australian levels this season. Jack Sinclair, I dare say, has gotten better. Brad Hill, Liam Stocker. You can look across the board. A lot of players have improved. I've definitely missed a couple. Ronnie Burns, for the first, 7 to 8 weeks, showed some serious form. It was looking very good. Mason Wood, All-Australian wingman. There's a lot to like in terms of individual performances this season. Collectively, of course, we've been better. Obviously, we're going to suffer the old hiccup, and we've seen that in the last month. But to sit 7-4, 5th on the ladder, only 2 to 3 games off top, only a couple of wins off second. You got to take that. You got to take that, Saners. So obviously I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the season so far, but along the journey, I want you to be commenting your thoughts. How are you feeling about the first part of the year? Okay, so I did put it out to the Saners originally on Twitter and Facebook. So before we get into my thoughts, let's go through a couple of comments from there. This one's from ST Cambatelli, taking my I want to win every game hat off and putting my big picture hat on. I'm wrapped 7-4 with new coaching panel, Max playing 2 games, Membry same, a key forward line that had a games played line of 0, 0 and 7. You would take where we are every single time. Trav says we've started the year with a good defensive game plan, but that has fallen away as of late. Probably need another trade and draft to get the squad Ross is really looking for. Probably sit on some decent currency as it stands. We'll have to lose to gain. Fair call. Robbo says overall happy with the ladder position, all things considered. Would like to see some different players in the team, such as Wenhager, Billings, Bytel, Connolly, Heath, Keeler, Paris, Van Ez, plus the injured ones back. Notably Jack Hayes. Maybe put Gresham up as trade bait at year's end. Kendall says, hard to gauge at the moment. The positives are the younger players. Philippou, Hammer, Naz, Owens, and King has been amazing in his 2 games. Stocker is an absolute beauty as well. Might make 14 my next Guernsey. Question marks over who will still be there in their prime by, say, 2025. Sparks is better than expected, but the long-term injuries are now telling. Need to inject some pace and players with better foot skills in the second half. Finney says we've got, or at least developing, an actual identity under Ross. Good core group of players, many young, which is a huge positive. The list still needs a lot of work though. Too many players have been part of our mediocre system for too long now, and it shows. So those are a couple there from Twitter. So thank you to those guys for tweeting. There's more on Facebook. We can get into those a bit later. But in terms of my general thoughts on the season so far, it's good. It's good. I'm happy with the development. Obviously, the weekend's performance wasn't what we wanted, and that did remind us of why we wanted to get Ross in the first place. But yeah, I guess there's a few comments there that put it into perspective that Ross doesn't have the team that he wants yet. I go back to even in the EPL, English Premier League, when Jurgen Klopp took over Liverpool. His side that he took over for his first game to his title-winning side, and you look at the changes there. There were 10 or 11 different players in his title-winning side. It takes time Ross Lyon came in after the trade period, basically. He didn't have time, and he obviously didn't have the knowledge to go and make changes. This season, he says it's an exploration season, and I get that. But obviously, the more you get into the season and the longer you stay in the top 8, obviously, the more I would say the expectation should change to we want to make finals this season. We want to play a final in Melbourne, whether it's an elimination final or whatever. You want to play final, you want to get experience, and you want to see some of these boys on the big stage and see how they handle finals football. There are a lot of fresh faces, which is the exciting part of the first 11 weeks. And that's one of the key positives for me is the youngsters. They've led the way. If anything, they're the ones that have really driven the identity for St Kilda in the first 11 weeks. It's not been the senior players. If anything, I've actually been a bit let down by some of these senior boys in the first part of the season, notably of late. And I think it's really important to, to look at the youngsters and see what they've achieved. Filippo has been excellent. He's played 11 games. He's played every single game, and he's kicked some clutch goals from outside 50 from the centre square. His handball skills are excellent. You got Mitch Owens, who Rising Star nomination, one of the favourites before he got injured, has been excellent again. Caminiti has been really, really impressive. You got Liam Stocker, who's still quite young. Nasai Wangan Malira, if you don't mind. His last month has been excellent. I'm definitely missing a few other names there. Winhager has battled for his position, but he's still sticking at it at Sandy and doing very well, getting big numbers there. And no doubt he'll get a look in post-bye. Jack Bytel as well. And then there's other players that haven't had a look yet, but we know they've got some skills, and that's Isaac Keeler, Van Ez, Paris. There's a lot of good youth coming through at St Kilda, which is something we haven't been able to look at for a long, long time. Even when Ross was last coach, we didn't have that sort of youth coming through. We obviously don't have the top tier talent that Ross had in 09-10, obviously. But I would say that the bottom 10 to 15 players of this list are better, skills-wise individually than 09-10. 09-10 was carried very much by the structure and the absolute A-grade talent, the cream of the crop that Ross Lyon had in those years. I think we've got a more balanced list now, but obviously there's still a lot of churn and burn that we need to do to get to being really that top 4, top 2 contender team. And I think for the first 11 weeks, we've seen the good. We've seen absolutely the good. The way we started this season, the first 5 weeks, was excellent. Some of the best football, the competition's seen outside of Collingwood, who's really proven that, they've been able to sustain it unlike us. And that's where we want to get to. And then we've seen the bad. The last month, we've seen teams work us out. Handball. They've overused the handball to get through our zone. When the zone breaks down, when teams are able to get on a run and get through our midfield quicker than we want, our defence is isolated one-on-one. And Josh Battle, Dougal Howard, and Kel Wilkie, they don't like that. They like working together as a unit. We are a very good unit. When we stick together, we're unbeatable. But when teams are able to isolate us, we struggle. And we've seen that in the last month. And the best thing is we know that Ross Lyon will get to work over the bye and hopefully work on something that will help counter that. Now, another positive, obviously I just alluded to it, but the defence. We're the number 1 defensive team in the competition. The gap is reduced a little bit over the last month because we have conceded a couple of big scores. But even so, we're still probably, I think, 8 or 9 goals better off than the Western Bulldogs, who are the second best defensive team in the competition. And that's awesome to see. Last year we were leaking goals, absolutely leaking goals. So to see us stay in games, even when we're not playing at our best because of our defensive structure, has been really, really important. Obviously on the weekend, the Hawks had a lot of chances and they could have buried us. But there's been other games where teams have peppered, gotten it inside their attacking 50 on a lot of occasions and have returned with, 1 point or 1 goal from 10 to 15 entries. Now, we've got Fox Sports. They've done their mid-season review cards, and I just thought on top of what my review card is in this video, we'd go into what they have said, because I'm always very curious to see what the experts think. Now, they've got 3-word analysis on the season for St Kilda. Riding Ross roller coaster. That's pretty accurate. This is what's gone right for our footy club in 2023 so far. The beginning of the second Ross Lyon era went better than even the most ardent Saints supporters could have expected. Off the back of a hard preseason and showing excellent running ability, the men from Moorabbin burst out of the blocks in 2023, winning their first 4 matches and sitting 5-1 with just a narrow loss to Premiership fancy Collingwood. Kel Wilkie, Sinclair were threatening to claim spots in the All-Australian back 6. Mason Wood alongside them as a shock inclusion on the wing, and Mitch Owens, a genuine young superstar up forward. The lengthy injury list, that's a key positive, actually. I'll pause right there. But being able to be 7-4 without injuries, when you see other teams struggling with theirs, to be able to cover them shows, the system that Ross has got. It's not just about the personnel. It's about next man up, focus. It doesn't matter who's playing, but if you're playing in the 22 on the weekend for St Kilda, we're in the jumper, in the firsts, you just do your job and the rest will take care of itself. And for the most part, that's been the case. What's gone wrong? The Saints haven't won consecutive games since early April, and their form since that blistering start has been less than impressive. We've been thumped by Adelaide. We narrowly beat the Giants. We narrowly beat North in a very, very ugly game, and obviously we should have lost by more to Hawthorn. Whether other teams have found them out, their middling list has fallen back to reality or something else entirely, the optimism around the Saints is beginning to evaporate. Their fans will be getting flashbacks to 2022 when they sat 8-3 at the bye, yet won just 3 more games all season. See, that's something that I take from the first 11 weeks, is that I genuinely think that we are going to have, a much stronger second half of the season this year than we did last year. There's no point in comparing the two. They're completely different teams, completely different game plans, and obviously the players and the coaches are very, very different to last year as well. So I'm really, really optimistic that the first 11 weeks was very much a trial and error from Ross Lyon's point of view. And he'll be able to identify what's worked and what hasn't worked, and obviously come back in the second part of the year and hopefully develop more of a game plan that will see us, stay in the 8. Because if we make the 8 this season, we'd have to say that's an A+ season. That's what we want to see. In the first season under Ross Lyon, with so much gone wrong last year, to be able to play potentially in the finals this year, you'd have to say that's an absolute A+ effort, and then we just want to improve from that point. I think the other thing to note is that the game plan that I've seen so far in the first 11 weeks does look more sustainable. Last year, 8-3, it looks better on paper than what it actually was. When you look at some of those performances last year, we won the games with 5-10 minutes of blistering football, and it was very much momentum focused, whereas a lot of our wins this season have been from start to finish. We have completely outplayed the opposition and controlled the game, and it's been on our terms, and we've got the 4 points pretty comfortably, Last year, go back and look at a lot of those games and find how many of them from start to finish we were the better team. From start to finish. I reckon it was round 3 or round 4 when we played Hawthorn at the MCG. That was notably the only game, maybe North Melbourne in round 11 or 12, where we were the better team from start to finish. The Adelaide game, Max King kicked 6 straight. We were behind the entire game apart from the last 10 minutes. Geelong, same thing, third quarter blitz. Richmond, same thing, third, fourth quarter blitz. That to me showed, that we weren't going to be a force because we weren't able to put it together for 4 quarters. But for a lot of wins this season, Carlton, Gold Coast, I'd say Fremantle, there's been a lot of games this season where Essendon, for the most part, we played 3 to 4 quarters of really, really strong football. And that to me is more important than, having a 5-minute blitz where we kick 7 goals straight and win the game, So I think what Ross is building is for the long term, and obviously short term, we do want to see the results. But in reality, if we finish 9th or 8th this season and get bundled out in the first week of the finals, but that ensures that we're better prepared for next season where we want to have a bigger tilt and go for 15, 16 wins, then you take that, So for me, it's been a really, really good start to the season. I obviously wanted to win the game on the weekend and to go in 8-3, but maybe that's the silver lining. Maybe last year 8-3 looked, better than it was, and this year maybe 7-4, being 1 game less better off, actually is better than it looks. So maybe that's the irony behind the fact that we're 7-4 and last year we were 8-3. So I'm really, really happy with the development. It has exceeded my expectations. I really didn't think we would be 5th at the bye round, to be brutally honest. So on that alone, I'm really happy with how things are going. I think that we needed the bye. I think that, we started the year so quickly, and our fitness has probably wavered, and it's been a bit of that. And obviously, teams have worked us out. But that's the thing is, I back Ross to have a plan B, C, and D. I didn't really trust our previous coaches to be able to do that. And I think Ross is, we got him in for a reason, and I'm really excited to see how we play, the Swans next Thursday night, because it might be a completely different look to what we've seen. I think Ross is that sort of coach that he'll analyse this round with the week off and look at what teams are doing, and hopefully we'll be able to develop something that will ensure that we can win that, probably I'd say 6 to 7 games in the second part of the season, and that should be enough to hopefully sneak the 8. So I'll leave it there, Saners. I'm a pretty positive Saner. Despite the game on the weekend, I think overall we should all be pretty happy with 7-4. I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater based on the weekend's performance. I think as a whole, look at it as a whole, and yes, we could have been and should have been 8-3, but we're 7-4, and yeah, hopefully we learn from the weekend's game, and I think we should take away a lot of positives from the first 11 weeks. Whether it's the youth or the defensive structure. Giving games to some players that we didn't think were probably best 22 material, but have proven to be quite important in our side. And obviously covering over the injuries is another thing. A lot of teams have had injuries and they've struggled. We had injuries, and I dare say that was when we were at our best this season, which is really good. Shows a bit of depth, which I don't think we've had in a long time. So comment your thoughts, Saners. This isn't just about my thoughts. I want to hear what you think about the first 11 rounds. We are 7-4. We are 5th on the ladder. How are you feeling about the rest of the season, and how have you felt in the first 11 weeks? Has it exceeded your expectations, the performances? Are there, key improvements that you've noticed under Ross that you haven't noticed in years gone by? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so make sure you comment them, like the video as well, and subscribe. And obviously, off the back of this, tonight we are revealing our special guest for our special Saints TV podcast episode. And tomorrow night at 6 p.m. on YouTube and all podcast streaming platforms, the episode in full will be released. So stay tuned for that. So I appreciate it, Saners. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and hearing my thoughts on the season so far. And I can't wait for the second part of the season and where the rest of the 2023 AFL season takes the St Kilda Football Club. So stay tuned for more content. Enjoy the rest of your week. And as always, Saners, go you mighty Saners. See you guys.